Hello, this is Steve Ramona, your host for Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. I want to thank our sponsors, InPhone, and with InPhone, you can place your business on everybody's cell phone, turn their business into a web app, and with a click of a button, they'll have access to you 24/7. And also Pantheon.fm. Have you ever thought about monetizing and taking your podcast to the next level? Well, Pantheon can do that. Let us show you how. Reach out to Steve Ramona, the host, at inphone.co/SR1, and I will go over with you how you can make your podcast really stand out. Let's enjoy the show. Thanks again, everybody. Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. My guest today is powerful. What he's going to talk about is a game changer in business. And guess what? You do it every day. So it's not only for business, it's for your life, your personal, your marriage, your friends, family. And it's a skill that you can learn and get better at that he's teaching me to get better at. So the leadership development consultant, Burr, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Steve. Great to be here.
I love that title because leadership is important and we need to develop every day. Yep. So let's talk about leadership and conversation, how that bridge is.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, a lot of the work I do is it helping teams and individuals be more effective. I think it's something that has always fascinated me as a father of five, busy life. I want to have it all, and by that I mean I want to have a healthy marriage. I want to be a good father. I want to be have a thriving career. And I want to have time for my health and fitness. I want to have time for some vacations. These are all areas that are really important. And so I think it really does come down to developing ourselves as leaders. And I don't care what your job title is, you are a leader right where you are. You have the ability to make an impact and to make a difference in people's lives. And so a lot of the work I do is in helping people overcome challenges and become more of who they really have always envisioned themselves becoming.
I always ask this for our leadership people like you that teach it so well. What's the definition to you of servant leadership?
I mean, servant leadership to me is really about putting the needs of others ahead of your own. And that if you help the people around you accomplish what it is that they want to accomplish, don't obsess about the results. Everything's going to work out just fine. You know, my first manager, my first time leading a team of outside salespeople, I was leading a team of 12. My manager and mentor at that time gave me some advice along those lines, which was never make management or leadership decisions with your wallet. And I think that was really sound advice, is that if you are making decisions for the team based on what you think is going to bonus you most, it's not going to work out for you. Because if people get the sense that you aren't for them, you're for yourself, you're not really in it for them, and they're not your number one priority, you are your number one priority, then people are just going to give you what they feel like giving you. They're not going to give you that discretionary effort, which is, you know, above and beyond. It's coming in early, it's staying late, it's caring, it's doing the right things when no one's looking. That comes when people feel cared about and valued and respected. And if you're making decisions that are self-centered and selfish, you know, you're going to lose your people and you're not going to get the best from those you have.
Yeah. We talked about conversations before the show being a skill. Talk about conversation, how important it is for your business, but also to be a leader.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most powerful topics that I spend time with my individual coaching clients and the work that I do in workshops with teams, focusing on helping people develop these skills, because I really believe the outcomes and results that we have in our lives are a direct result of the quality of the conversations that we have. So what happens, right? First of all, if we have a conversation, if you and I have a conversation that the stakes are somewhat high and the outcome is somewhat uncertain, and I walk into this conversation with you, Steve, and I have my 3 to 5 bullet points. All right, I've got an hour with Steve. I've got to make sure I get these points across, and I'm going to think a little bit about maybe what some of your counterpoints are so that I can neutralize your counterpoints. But basically, I'm walking in with a real broken paradigm around this entire thing, in that there's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser in this conversation in all likelihood. And maybe there's a win-win there, but I'm not really hopeful for that. if there's going to be a winner and a loser, Steve, as much as I like you, I have bills to pay. I have my own needs. I'm going to make sure that I win the argument. And if your needs happen to get met with the leftovers, cool, great, good for you. But I'm making sure that I get mine first. That frame of mind walking into a conversation sets us apart as oppositional, and it's me versus you. And I'm, again, there's different levels of listening. What people tend to do in those types of situations and engagements is do something called evaluative listening, which is I'm listening to you just enough so that I've heard the end of your argument and really the meat of it. And now I'm thinking about, all right, which of my 3 to 5 points can I use to counter that point of Steve so that I win my side and win my argument, right? And I'm not really listening for the true intention of listening to really understand what's going on for you. So in a lot of my work, when it comes to improving conversations and getting better results for people, it's really coaching people and helping them think a little bit more critically about the way they approach these conversations, and to really think more in terms of, instead of a winner and a loser, we should be thinking in terms of how can I better understand what's going on for the other person? So I'm walking into this conversation. I do have needs, but this is back to servant leadership. Instead of me thinking about how I'm going to get my needs met, and that's front and center, that's might as well be tattooed on my forehead, Burr's needs, right? Instead, if I can enter this conversation going, all right, I do have some needs. I'm going to trust the process, and I'm going to trust that Steve's a decent human being, and I'm going to try and serve him first by seeking to understand his perspective and what's going on for him. And once Steve feels fully understood, then I will try and share what's going on for me. And that will kind of open the door for us to collaboratively look for those win-win scenarios that are out there, because there are a myriad number of win-win scenarios in almost all of these types of conversations. So yeah, I think that's a lot of the work I do ends up being along those lines.
And it's more complex than what I'm going to say, but you're talking about a conversation to an argument.
Yeah.
A win-lose is an argument, conversation, it's a win-win. Somehow, even if it's a little for me, a lot for you, it's still people are walking away with value. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And, I don't do conflict management or conflict resolution rather, but I've had the opportunity to sit in on a couple of mediations, and it's fascinating. Every time a mediation turns and is resolved, it's when one party feels fully understood by the other. And every single time I've been a part of those, that's how that goes. When one side really feels like, all right, you get it, then all of a sudden it's just like, all right, well, I'm willing to give here. What would you be willing to do? Oh, okay. Well, I'd be willing to give in this way. And so I think you're right. There's a difference between an argument and a conversation. And I think people prepare for a battle when they walk into what should be a conversation, a partnering where we're trying to figure out a win-win scenario together.
The lesson too for personal life, I just came to my head, is like your marriage, your friends, your family. We will go across that. Powerful stuff. Powerful, Burr.
Yeah.
People always think ROI. It's our world these days. So people are listening and go, "Oh, great conversations. You help me with conversations." But really, how's that going to help my business?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, in real practical terms, I think even that bad type of conversation that I opened with, it's really actually an argument just waiting to happen. Too little of those are happening because people are defaulting to email. I just had a couple conversations this morning with some of my clients where they're working with a client that will not engage in a face-to-face conversation if at all possible. He tries at every chance to shorten those opportunities and windows so that he can default to email, because it's less scary for him. He can organize his thoughts. He can make his point. An email is an asynchronous method of communication. It is not meant to be used as a vehicle for negotiating and solving challenges. It was not designed for that at all. It's being misused and bastardized, all the time. So a lot of the problem is that I really see is people aren't even engaging in those conversations. So back to your return on investment, This client, is in the construction space. She has $100,000 in unapproved change orders that she's trying to get this client to approve, and they're going back and forth. And of course, this is project closeout. So as the project's closing, there's no more room to kick that can down the road. It's all coming to an end, and we've got to sort this stuff out. So as much as the client has avoided these conversations and is continuing to try and push towards an email and an email war back and forth, my client, is trying to engage him in a conversation so that she can better meet his needs, understand what some of his hot button items are, and so that he can better understand the limitations from her perspective as well. So as she's getting better and better at having these types of conversations, she is much more likely to get that $100,000 change order approved and paid for. And if they're going to negotiate, fine. Like if it ends up being $75,000 or even $50,000, that's better than them getting attorneys involved and going down a road with liquidated damages and just all these nightmare scenarios that sometimes these situations devolve into.
Yeah, that's crazy. This is great with clients, but does it work for my employees if I'm a business owner?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm thinking, my mind went to what was recent, which was this morning's conversation on a client situation, but it's probably even more important internally within your own organization. And this, if you don't have conversations with your employees about how they're doing, if you don't have some kind of regular check-in rhythm to make sure that your employees are engaged, that they're feeling supported, that they have the tools and resources they need to do their jobs, they are much more likely to either leave you or to disengage and give you partial effort. And so there is a real cost to the business, because obviously when someone leaves, you're going to have to replace that person. While that person's gone, you or other people in your business are going to have to step in and fill those gaps. That's going to impact the business, slow down delivery, impact client satisfaction. Meanwhile, you are, spending time on Indeed or whatever, other platforms, or working with recruiters to try and backfill that position. If you're using a recruiter, you're paying a premium to that recruiter to find you that head. It is extremely costly. And so, we have this leaky bucket that happens, right? Because we as business owners and leaders, we want to focus on revenue at the top line, and we want to fill that funnel with new opportunities, new clients, and make sure they're coming in so that we can continue to keep the lights on. But it's really easy to ignore the back end of the business, which was our own people. And if we're losing people and losing talent, or even losing the quality and the capacity that some of these employees we have, we're losing money out the back end of the business. And as a 49-year-old guy, I recognize I'm now the old guy, get off my lawn kid. There are some generational differences, and some of them are amazing, and some of them are challenging. And just a practical reality is that millennials and Gen Zs, it's been proven out, through a lot of data and research. There's a lot of articles out there that you could look up. They are not willing to stay in a place where they're miserable, or they're just not gonna give all they have, right? They'll either leave the organization if they're not feeling engaged and not feeling valued and cared about, or they will do this quiet quitting thing, which is just this new concept where they just show up and kind of, I'm not quitting, but I'm just going to show up, and I don't know what they do. I mean, if they're working on a side hustle while they're at work, or they're shopping on Amazon, or if they're playing, a game on their phone, but they're not giving you what you're paying them for, and they're not, it's a lose for everybody, because they're not becoming the person that they should be either. They're just allowing themselves to kind of exist in this really unproductive, unengaged state. So to your point, the quality of our conversations has a very real impact on the return on investment in our businesses, whether it's external facing with our clients or internally facing with our employees.
That's so great. And quiet quitting, my wife works at Trader Joe's. She's a manager and she runs it all the time. It's crazy. But we have to do another topic on that next show, because that's a big topic. But what also comes to mind is the flip side, Burr. And I know you're going to have a great answer to this, because owners, founders, managers, we have bad employees. An employee that just doesn't fit, they're not, all that stuff.
Yeah.
How important is conversations to that situation?
Yeah, it's a poignant question, because the economy is weird right now, and there are people that, and businesses across the board, are having to look at the bottom line and think more critically about how we're spending our money. And my clients, none of them yet have had to do layoffs, but they have used the slowdown in the economy as an opportunity to reevaluate the talent they have. And what every company is doing in some form or fashion, I don't care if you've got 3 employees, if you've got 3,000 employees, they are having conversations that go something like this. All right, leadership team, I need you all to identify who are your A and B players. Let's just get those people in a bucket right now. Okay, for those people, those are the future. And we need to make sure we wrap our arms around those people, that they feel safe and we don't lose them. Let's continue to support them and pour into them with resources like, leadership support and development from a company like mine. Then let's talk about anyone that might be a C player or below, anyone that's a cultural non-fit or an underperformer that you have some red flags or some even yellow flags for. Those people, we need to set a clock, and those people need to be off the books soon. So that might be 2 weeks, that might be 30 days, that might be 90 days. Then there's a third category that is kind of that bubble category. Anybody that you're not quite sure where to put them. Are they a B or are they a C? I'm not quite sure. I'm a C plus, B minus. You've got a small window of time to figure that out and get them in one bucket or the other. Either get them better and put them in that A and B category, and let's develop them, or let's get them gone. So there are 1,000 different ways to performance manage, and I unfortunately have, I learned through a lot of trial and error. This was an area for me that I really struggled with as a young leader when I was leading teams for the first time. I grew up in a family with domestic violence and 911 calls, and so I grew up really fearing conflict, and so I avoided it, and it really impacted my marriage early stages. Like I was the guy that when things got hot, I walked. The temperature came up, I'm taking a nice long walk and I'll be back when everybody's cool and calm. That didn't work real well in my marriage and didn't work well in my teams when I was leading people for the first time. I remember, this is a terrible story, but the first time I had to performance manage someone, it was a guy that I started with at the same time. We were in training together and I got promoted ahead of him. So we're, the same age-ish. And his numbers were really bad. And I was working in a sales environment where it was black and white. You're either making quota or you're not. And my boss, my new boss, is, as I'm promoted, is looking at his numbers. Hey, Joe has 6 months of like missing quota. What's the plan, Burr? And so it's like, okay, give me a little bit of time. So after 3 months, he came back to me again. Numbers are still bad. What's the plan? So I ended up needing to put him on a performance improvement plan. This is my first ever performance improvement plan. And I thought, all right, he and I came up together. We had, we both love Mexican food, and we had like our favorite place, this place called Tres Hermanos in downtown Sacramento, Midtown. And a little plug for that place. They're awesome. So I was like, I know, like I'll do it kind of subtly. We'll go there and we'll have lunch maybe a little later when it's not super crowded, and it's our favorite spot. We'll kind of be low key, and then I'll talk about performance, and then at the end I'll get this piece of paper out and have him sign it and talk about it. I mean, what a disaster. So we go through the lunch, we order our food, and the talk's going. I start talking about performance stuff. He sees where this is going, and I get the piece of paper out and I put it down. He looks down at the piece of paper. It was 2 pages, looks at the second page where he's supposed to sign. And it basically, the little sentence above that signature line said, if these, performance standards aren't met, consequences will follow up to and including termination. And he literally looked up at me and said, "You've got to be effing kidding me." And then put the paper down, got up and walked out. And then, like, I kid you not, 10 seconds later, our food gets delivered. I'm like, oh, I mean, it was so bad, so bad. That is what not to do, please, for all of your viewers and listeners. When it comes to performance management, there is a way to do that is honoring to the person and honoring to the organization. As leaders, our job is to keep our eye on the standard that we are aiming for. So if we are trying to lead our team and our company towards excellence, we really have to be aiming for perfection, knowing that we're not going to get perfection because no one's perfect. We're going to land on excellence. So that is my job as a leader, is to help us get there and to keep my eye on that standard at all times. When I see things happening in our business that are in alignment with that standard of excellence, that are getting us a little bit closer every day, I'm going to do my best to recognize that in the moment, organically, all the time. when I see something that may not be in alignment with that standard of excellence, I'm not going to be some kind of accountability hammer and come around smashing people. I'm going to get curious because I don't have the whole picture. So if I see something that looks off, that doesn't look quite right, even if I know it's wrong, I'm going to pull the individual aside privately, not publicly, and ask some questions. So that might look like, hey, Steve, I noticed in the meeting that when we got to the topic of you delivering kind of your updates, you were met with some resistance, and as soon as that other person made that comment, your body language totally changed. You opened your laptop and kind of disengaged from me. At least that's what I felt like. It looked like that to me. Help me understand what was going on for you during that meeting. So I might be 100% right that what I saw is what I saw, and I could tell that you disengaged, and I could tell you were feeling unsafe, and you didn't like that person's comment. The point is not that I'm right and you're wrong. Again, this is not being adversarial. This is me better trying to understand what was going on for you. And there is more to the story, right? Because you might have already had a couple of interactions with that person. You thought you were aligned, and then publicly in the meeting, he didn't step up and have your back the way he was supposed to, or he changed the story or whatever. So when it comes to performance management and accountability, I think it's a much nicer and humanizing way to manage our poor performers, because I am held to that same standard. We are all held to that standard. And this should be something that happens throughout high-performing organizations and high-performing teams. We're all trying to hit the standard of excellence. So when any person, any employee sees something that is in alignment with that standard, good, recognize it, give an attaboy, attagirl, whatever that might be, a high five. When you see something that may not be helping the team get where they want to go, get curious, have a conversation. Don't wait for your boss to do it. Don't go run to someone else. Go have the conversation. The highest performing teams that I work with do this stuff all the time. They're giving and receiving feedback freely across the organization. I think that's what high performance looks like. And so, kind of a long-winded answer to your question around performance management. I think you've got to have those conversations, have them early, and don't come in with, I see leaders wait too long because they're scared of the conversations and they're uncomfortable. And I mean, I'm an expert in this stuff. I have a lot of experience doing it myself for decades, and I have experience coaching people through it. And I still get nervous when having these kinds of conversations with people, but I think it makes me less nervous and more comfortable when I think about this is a conversation that is really honoring to the other person, because I'm pointing out to them the truth that they are not meeting the standard from my perspective. And I want to better understand what's going on for them so that I can try and help them. That's honoring the person and honoring the standard and the values of the organization that we're trying to achieve excellence. And that gives the other person a chance to know early, hey, I'm not meeting the standard. Burr just gave me some specifics. We talked about it. He heard my perspective, and he's conveyed to me that he's here for me. He's going to try and support me to help me get better to meet that standard. That's reasonable. That's fair. That's how we should performance manage. And if over time we're having the same kinds of conversations, and believe me, I've had to do this, and it's never fun, but having to come back 2 weeks later, a month later, again at 60 days, and again at 90 days, like, hey, we're having the same conversations again and again. I can't keep doing this, and I can't keep allowing the standards to not be met. We need to talk about what some next steps are, because I'm having some real concerns that you may not be a fit for the organization. You may not be a fit for the role, because you're continuing to not meet the standard that we're aiming for.
So well said. That's a great tip right there. And we're running out of time. I mean, what a great way to handle conflict, because that's, I think, is the biggest problem. People keep employees too long because they're afraid to talk to them or let them go. Shout out. How can people get a hold of you? They've got a business. They have conflict. They want to talk to you. How can
Yeah, absolutely. Go to my website. It's www.polarisprinciples.com. So Polaris like the North Star, principles like I have principles. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. Send me a message there. I'm trying to get more active there as well. And would love to set up a time to talk and see how my services might be a fit.
Just because of what you taught us about how to handle conflict with a not a good employee. I don't like bad. That's not a good word. I'm going to send 3 $20 Amazon gift cards to the first 3 people that reach out to you.
Awesome.
You have to mention this podcast. If they do, Burr will just get back to me with your email, and I'll send you. I sent 3 this morning for a
Love
guy
it.
that got 3 people that right away reached out. And I'm doing that because that's what servants do. You can hear and see, if you're watching this on YouTube, Burr has answers. Nobody has all the answers, but the answers he's given you are going to do a difference from level 1 to level 5, level 6, 7 in your business. And why not? Everybody needs a coach. If Michael Jordan needs a coach, then you need Burr Cota. So thank you for being on. This has been great. We're going to do part 2. There's so much more we can cover, and we will. One thing I'd like for you to do is, can you give my audience one more great tip that you've learned through all these years that may help them?
Yeah, I think if there's one thing I could point you towards, I think it would be to for everybody to get clear on your values. What are your non-negotiables? And I think a real simple exercise to begin this process is to just write down all the things you value. And literally that's going to be friendships, vacations, golf, joy, work. I mean, all the things. Then get some highlighters or colored pens or pencils and circle those items that seem to be themes together. And what you're going to end up with is probably 3, maybe 5 different themes and categories. It might be my faith, it might be health, might be my career, might be my personal relationships, whatever those are. And then try and take all those words that make up each of those categories and boil it down to one sentence. And you've got a great start right there on your core values. And those can really serve you through the best of times and through the hardest of times. And so if I had one thing that I could wish everybody that listens to this or sees this could do, is to be clear on their values and their reason for living, because God put you here for a reason. He's got a plan for your life, and it's just waiting there for you. So step fully into that.